Hello beautiful people of the internet, how are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today in this video I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in July for the Jane Austen July Readathon. In July I read 6 books for a total of 2,308 pages and an average star rating of 3.58 stars. There were no books this month that I really disliked. I just had a good deal of 3-star reads, which brought the average rating down a little bit. With all that being said, let's dive into the books that I read this month. Actually, one more thing that I wanted to mention is I did film a Jane Austen July reading vlog, so if you want to hear further thoughts about these books, definitely go check out that vlog for more information. Okay, the first book that I read for Jane Austen July was Pride and Prescience by Carrie Bebris. This is the first in the Mr. and Mrs. Darcy murder mystery series. I gave this book 3 stars. This book is a historical murder mystery that takes place shortly after Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy have married. Caroline Bingley just got engaged to a wealthy American, and sort of strange things start happening around Caroline and the Bingley family. This eventually results in a shocking murder, though the pacing of this book is a little bit strange because the actual murder does not take place until I think there's like less than 100 pages left in the book. So when I was reading it, I kept waiting and waiting for someone to die. We really have a lot of these strange events building up to the eventual murder, but it was different because usually when you read a murder mystery, the murder happens like in the first 25% of the book usually, and that was not the case here at all. Now, did this book absolutely blow my mind? No, but I think it was good when you take it for what it is. Just a silly, like, Pride and Prejudice fan fiction with a rompy murder mystery twist. I thought it was really fun to read and really easy to read. It's not going to be one of my new all-time favorite things. Like I said, the pacing was a little bit strange, and it's not like the ending was absolutely shocking to me, though I do think there were clever elements to the ultimate resolution. I do think this book had problems, but it was pretty fun overall, and I would be open to reading more books in this series. I do love the way the author wrote Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy and their dynamic. I think that their playful banter was done exceptionally well. I have heard people say the books in this series get better as they go on, so I think I will probably continue in this series. Then I read Lady Susan by Jane Austen. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I liked it, though not as much as Jane Austen's other books. This is a novella told in the form of letters. The main character, Lady Susan Vernon, is recently widowed, and she is this extremely beautiful, charming, and manipulative woman. She has a teenage daughter, Frederica, and she's trying to force Frederica to marry this very wealthy man, and just generally causing a lot of trouble. I did not love Lady Susan like I love Jane Austen's full-length novels. I think due to this being a short novella and being told in an epistolary format, I just didn't love the characters or feel as connected to them as I do in Jane Austen's novels. However, this was still a Jane Austen book, so I still really enjoyed it. I think it had some of her witty writing, and there were parts that I did find genuinely humorous. So all in all, it was a good read, just didn't have the same depth that I think her full-length novels do. Next, I have one book I read that is not at all Jane Austen related, but in July I finished reading Drums of Autumn by Diana Gabaldon. This is one of the Outlander novels, and I believe this might be my least favorite in the series so far. It wasn't bad. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I just didn't love this book as much as I hoped I would. The basic premise of the Outlander series is that we follow a 20th century nurse named Claire who ends up time traveling back to 1700s Scotland, where she has many adventures and she ends up finding true love with a Scottish Highlander named Jamie Fraser. This particular book in the series was fine. I had a fine time reading it. I just think there were parts in the middle of the book where I was kind of a little bored, to be honest. And then when stuff finally started to go down, I kind of felt like it happened so quickly, because a lot of the really like dramatic stuff that happens in this book happens very close to the end, and I wish we could have just gotten to that part quicker and maybe like cut out some of the stuff in the middle to have that plot line take longer. It just felt like it all happened so fast. I don't know. I wasn't super crazy about the way this book was paced, personally. I still really like this series. I thought this book was good, just not great. I do think that I appreciated how some plot lines were given a little more time to develop in the book, where obviously in the television adaptation, they cannot keep everything from the book, and I think it was just, the storylines were better when they had a little more on-page development. Obviously, I understand why the TV show had to cut some things out, but I do think there were certain storylines I did like better in this book compared to the television show. Then I read The Clergyman's Wife by Molly Greeley. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. This is a Pride and Prejudice sequel that follows Charlotte Collins as the main character. I feel like this is not a very plot-heavy book. It mainly is, I would say, a sort of slice of life for Charlotte in her new life as Mr. Collins's wife, and it's very quiet, reflective. I feel like this is not really a plot-driven book. It's really driven by the Charlotte character and her thoughts and feelings. Based on the plot description on the back of the book, I thought that the romantic storyline was going to play a bigger part, and it really didn't play out like I assumed it would. However, what I did like about this book is I liked the way the characters were portrayed. I think the way Mr. Collins was written was particularly well done, and I think it lined up with my personal impressions of him. I feel like, yeah, he's annoying, sometimes condescending, but I don't see him as a cruel person, and I feel like the way he was written in this book really matched the way I personally view his character. Another thing about this book is it does discuss the death of a child shortly after birth. That is mentioned via flashbacks and recollections, but I think it's important to mention if that's something that is triggering to you or that you think will greatly upset you, this is not the book for you. Then I read Pride and Premeditation by Tirza Price, which is the first in the Jane Austen murder mystery series, a series where the author is retelling every single Jane Austen novel as a historical murder mystery. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I think it was fun and pretty easy to read, but I did have issues with it, and that's why I didn't give it a higher rating. As you probably guessed, this is a murder mystery retelling of Pride and Prejudice, where Elizabeth Bennet really wants to become a lawyer, something that is not acceptable for women to do in this time, but she sets out to prove everyone wrong, and she decides that the way she's going to do that is by exonerating a man who is suspected of murder. And while doing this, she encounters Fitzwilliam Darcy of the law firm Pemberley and Associates, and the two of them originally butt heads, but, eventually begin to admire each other. Now, this book is actually a young adult book, and I don't really get why it was a young adult book. The Lizzie character is 17 years old in this book, and I just don't really think that was necessary. It also causes some issues because we still have Mary, Kitty, and Lydia as minor background characters in this book, and I do not think they acted their age. If Lizzie is 17, that means that the oldest Lydia, the youngest could be, is 14. And I don't feel like she talked like she was 14. I don't understand why the author didn't just keep the ages the same. I think that was kind of an unnecessary change. Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy are probably my favorite fictional couple of all time, and I did not love their relationship as much in this retelling as I do in the original. Granted, that is a very high bar. This book employs this young adult trope that I really, really hate, where Elizabeth will just be thinking about, oh God, Mr. Darcy, he's so frustrating, I can't stand him. But damn, his eyes are really pretty. And I just don't like that. I just want to have a little bit more of a slow burn. I want the characters to be in denial about their feelings and eventually realize they're attracted to each other. And like, it's just hard for me to believe that they really have this adversarial relationship when immediately after thinking about how frustrating he is, she immediately jumps to, he's really good looking. Like, I don't know, I just don't like it when young adult books do this. It kind of ruins the ship for me. Anybody else feel this way? Do you know what I'm talking about? I also think it's very, very easy to predict who the bad guys will be if you've read the original Pride and Prejudice. It's not really that hard to guess. However, I did think this was a fun book. There were some parts of it that I thought were genuinely charming and funny. Will I continue reading this series? I don't know. I am open to it, but if I'm being realistic, there are so many books out there that I want to read. Is this series going to be a priority for me? Is it actually going to happen? I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Finally, what actually turned out to be my favorite book of the month was The Real Jane Austen, A Life in Small Things by Paula Byrne. I ended up giving this book 5 stars, which I wasn't really expecting. Usually I only give books 5 stars if I absolutely loved it, think it's going to be an all-time favorite, something that I'm going to recommend constantly. And I don't know if a nonfiction book about Jane Austen is going to be one of my new all-time favorites. However, I think this book gave me everything I wanted from it, and because of that, I think it deserved the 5-star rating. This is a biography of Jane Austen. However, it's told through material objects. So each chapter will talk about a certain aspect of Jane Austen's life in relation to, say, her writing desk, or the subscriptions to different books that her family had, or the carriage they used to take out to visit friends. It's not always told in a linear format, so I don't know if this would be the right choice for the first Jane Austen biography you ever read, but if you already know a little bit about Jane Austen and you're looking for a nonfiction book about her, I think this is a good one to pick up. Sometimes when you read a nonfiction book, it takes a long time to get through, the writing is dense, but I felt like this book was really engaging and easy to read for a biography. I really enjoyed it, so if it sounds like something that you would be interested in, I think it's worth a shot. So those are all the books that I read in the month of July. Let me know in the comments what you read in July. Did you participate in Jane Austen July as well? If so, what was your favorite book you read? I would really like to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more from me. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. My social media links are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a mesmerizing rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.